All right, so we finished our wavy line design, and now we need to shade it. So we've got to make it look three-dimensional. The only way to make it look three-dimensional is to properly shade it. A couple things that we're going to need to make this possible. We've got a blending stub, which can be very important depending on your technique of shading. We've got 4 different pencils to choose from. We've got the HB, the 2B, the 4B, and the 6B. Okay, I'm not going to use all of these. These are all okay to use. There will probably be 2 that I'll stick to the most, if not 1. We also have a kneaded eraser, and then I have my pencil sharpener. There is another way you can sharpen your pencils. For these nice pencils, I wouldn't recommend using one of those crank pencil sharpeners that usually hang on the wall, the 80s style. I would use one of these. It takes off less wood off your pencils, or if you have the nice graphite woodless pencils, it'll take less off, so they'll last longer. That's key, especially if you're on a budget. All right, so what we need to do is we need to add some value to this, and then at some point in this video you will just see photographs of the progression, but I'm going to get you started. Once I get you started, I want you to continue on and just keep shading based on the principles that I'm going to discuss with you. So I'm going to get rid of my HB. Just thinking about it, I'm not going to use the HB. HB is a nice pencil. It's your basic number 2 pencil. It's a little light for what I want to do and how I'm going to shade, so I'm actually just going to eliminate my HB pencil right off the bat. I'm going to start with the 2B pencil. So having your 2B pencil, let's pick a spot, and how I tell my students is to make sure you go from left to right if you're right-handed. We want to keep your hand out of your graphite. If you can't do that, or if you have a difficult time doing that, get a blank sheet of paper and put it underneath your hand, so that way your hand is not resting in the graphite. That's a good tip to keep you from smudging your paper. All right, so on the 2B, what we want to do is these middle ones here all the way across, for the most part, I want to leave white, or I want to leave them very lightly valued. But I'm going to start with this one. So from here, from the middle, I'm going to leave this blank, and I'm going to start here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do every other one. Okay, you can choose to do every one, and I can put some images on here of how that looks. So you can see the differences and which way you like. Some of my students will vary, will stray off from what I tell them to do when I say go every other one, and they do every one. That can be okay if it's successful. If it looks dimensional, it can have a pretty neat effect. But for now, just for learning this is getting comfortable with value to make things look dimensional. Okay, we want them to look round and not flat. So to do that, typically you want something to go from dark to light to dark again. So we're going to start here and use our 2B. What you want to do is start adding value right on that line. And I want you to keep your pencil going in the direction of the lines. So your lines are going this way. You're not shading straight up and down, and you're not shading straight across. What happens to a curved object if you put a straight line through it is it makes it look flat. So we don't want it to look flat. We want to keep it round, all right? So we're going to keep our pencil, especially when we're adding the value, going in the direction of the lines, okay? So you don't need a blending stub all the time, unless you have a difficult time blending your pencil as you go. Because there are ways to blend your pencil, your graphite, without using a blending stub, but it takes some time and concentration. Plus, sometimes you want the line look just because it may look better than, you know, the smeared or, you know, more fluid look that you'll get with the blending stub. So the other part with the blending stub, this is a softer pencil being a 2B. If we use a 4B or a 6B, the blending stub is gonna pick up that value, that graphite, really easily and move it. If you use a lower or a harder pencil, being an HB or a 2H, 4H, so on and so forth, the blending stub's not gonna work too well. Okay, so the 2B, it'll work okay with, but you have to watch your pressure on the blending stub as well. So with this, I'm getting lighter with how hard I'm pushing onto the paper. So I'm pushing very, 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 very lightly. And now I think this is a good time, if I want, I'm gonna take the blending stub. So feel free to turn your paper as well. And what I wanna do is just start here, and I'm barely pushing on the paper. Start smoothing that out and dragging that value over. And what we can see is that value, those lines are kind of going away. It's looking a little more, it's looking softer. We'll say that it's looking softer. And we're stretching that value out. We're going from light to dark. We're not done though when we do this. We're gonna have to go back and sharpen things up. But you see, I stopped shading here, but now I've got value going all the way to here, all right? So I've got a nice transition from dark up to light. We don't want it to have just a solid line cutting off the value. We don't want to do chunks of different grades of value. We want it to blend smoothly. We want it to go nice and smooth. And what happens, like that looks pretty nice, but I'm gonna go back in with the 4B, and I'm gonna sharpen up this line back here, and this is gonna add a little more dark value right on that line, and then come up just a little bit. Every time you add value does not mean you need to use your blending stub. Sometimes it's very important not to use your blending stub, because the blending stub can end up making something look like one value. And when you're trying to make something look round, just having a flat value is not going to give you a round look. It's going to give you a flat look. Okay, so I brought that up, that 4B up fairly far. And now I'm just gonna smooth it out at the line. I'm not gonna go all the way back to where I started with it to blend it out, because I could lose that roundness, okay? I could end up losing that value transition. So that's what I want you to do. And since these big areas here are large, and then these get smaller, this large area, we wanna keep fairly light. So if you imagine squeezing a balloon, or if you have a kind of a long balloon and you squeeze it on two sides, this part in the middle will expand. So imagine this is our balloon and we squeeze like right here, you get this kind of blown up balloon, and it stretches it out and it changes the value of the balloon. So it's the same thing that we're trying to create here. I like to call these worms or tubes or something. And then again, go further and you'll see my progression as well on how this goes and what the end product looks like. And it can look pretty neat. Again, I'll try and put some pictures on here that will have different looks to them based on what my sixth graders do or have done. So you can see the differences between techniques, okay? I'm teaching them the basic principle. I'm teaching you the basic principle of creating something round. You have to go from dark to light, back dark to dark again. And, but you can see the way other people do it. It can still be achieved, but you can have a completely different look to your worms, okay? So I'm gonna continue on with my 2B. And again, I'm going to skip one. And it goes a little quicker once you get down into the small pieces. And you don't want to have that value, that really bright light value, almost white, always showing down in these small portions like down here. We don't need that to really have much of a highlight, because you have to imagine that it's down deeper and away from you. If something's close up, it's gonna be brighter. Something's further away, it's gonna be darker, okay? So try to, again, keeping with the contour of the shape, I do small little strokes and kind of quick, but back and forth, and it kind of blends. This is how you can blend without that blending stub, is if you do this right and you ease up on the pressure, then you can achieve that look that you're going for without using the stub. Okay, now if that didn't blend out enough, or if I need to blend it because it ends a little harsh, then I can use the stub, go through and just drag a little bit of this in that area and make it blend out. I might still go back in with the 4B and sharpen up the dark area down in here, right along that line. I don't want to just create lines. I want to create the value. This is going down deeper, and the darker it is, the more contrast we'll have. The more contrast we'll have, the sharper the image will have. So if you see on like TVs, you go purchase a new TV nowadays, they do talk about contrast ratio, and that's the ratio between the dark and the light. And the darker the darks you have and the lighter the lights you have on the same image, it's going to create a more dynamic image. It's going to be stronger. When you have, like, you're only between two values or three values and they're all kind of a grayscale value, you're not going to get that sharp image. It's going to be sort of dull. Okay, if you notice, most TVs, or all TVs nowadays for that matter, have gone to a shiny black bevel around the screen itself, and that's to help with the contrast of your TV. Okay, a while ago, and not too recently ago, but a long time ago, there used to be a lot of gray TVs. Or gray bevels around those first, plasmas and LED TVs or LCD TVs, and those went away because they realized it was ruining the image. It wasn't creating that contrast as well. So they rely on the outside bevel of that TV. So having that strong value or contrast, that dark value, that light value, it's going to create the most dynamic image. Okay. Some of you may be wondering what the kneaded eraser is for. The kneaded eraser can be for a multitude of things, but one thing can be for if you have to lighten an area up. So we want to, bend this out, stretch it out. The more, if you know how to use a kneaded eraser, you just stretch it if it gets too dark and too much graphite picked up, and then you just mold it. A lot of my kids come in and think that it's clay. It's not clay. It's like how I like to refer to it as it's a non-edible, everlasting gobstopper. Okay, the Willy Wonka gobstopper that you can have forever. This is that kneaded eraser. Probably not very good for the environment, but in the art world, this is, especially with drawing, this is a great tool. So taking this end, so you can see I kind of shaped a little bit of an end here. You don't have to, but I don't want to have, you can get really fine points, especially if you're doing hair or drawing hair or some fine highlights that you want to get on the side of somebody's face or glasses or something in a small area. You can really pinch this. But I like to have kind of a smaller area. I don't want to just kind of hit my paper with a huge blob of eraser. But anyways, if our value needs to be lightened up in an area, if we got too dark, we can just take this, and you may not see the difference, but I will. It just kind of picks up the value, and then it picks up the graphite on the eraser as well. And then once this gets too heavy in graphite, that's when you mold it again. Okay, so I just want to kind of pick up some of that value and lighten it up, and that'll help take away some of the lines as well if your paper's a little linesy. So, all right, I believe I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to let you work. And I want you to, again, stay with the contour of the lines. If you see, I'm following along this line, and then I continue to follow it. I'm not going to go sideways. I'm not going to go up and down. I'm going to stay with the contour of the shape. It's going to really help with the image, the overall appearance of the image. So nice and easy. And again, ease up. You got to learn control of these pencils. If you can't control these pencils, you're not going to be able to be very successful with drawing. And you all have the ability. One thing in my class, well, not one thing, but a big thing I stress in my class is not saying the word can't. You can. You have to allow yourself time to work on it, figure it out, and you know, it may take a lot of failing, but you have to allow yourself the chance, the opportunity to be successful. If you say can't, you just said that you're never going to be able to do it. And most people give up when they say can't, or they've already given up. So don't say can't. Say I will. At some point I will understand it and I will be able to do it successfully, and everything will work out the way you want it to. All right, so I'm going to use my stub, and again, just go along. This will take some time. This will take a while to do if you take your time at it. And there's no reason to rush.